Let's talk about the big bad Eagle River real estate market update, and we're going to be looking specifically at the single-family market, the condos, and the multifamily market. This continues to kind of be the small but mighty market here in the area. A lot of people want to live here, and there ain't as many houses, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself and give away the market update before we get there. Before we get started, though, again, my name is Jamin Gurker. I'm your first friend in Alaska. I'm also a real estate broker in the state of Alaska. And today we're going to be talking about the Eagle River market update. Make sure you give this video a like and subscribe, and let's get into it. First thing we want to look at is what's going on in that single family market, because I know this is the asset class that a lot of people want when they're moving to Alaska. And I've kind of got some good news and some bad news. The good news is the inventory is up from where it was a couple of years before. And the bad news is it's actually down from where it was the previous year, and it's certainly down from where it was prior to COVID. Prior to COVID, we'd see anywhere from about 140 to about 190 single-family properties available on the market, and now there are 41 properties available on the market. So we're sitting at about a quarter of the inventory that we normally have had. Big reason for this is everybody refinanced or bought a couple of years ago, and so the interest rates are like 2%, 3%, 4%, and they're looking out there now seeing what they could afford at today's interest rates, and they're saying, yeah, there ain't no way you're gonna have to pry this property out of my cold dead hands. And that's kind of the energy that we have right now, and that's why we only have a quarter of the inventory available that we normally do. Now, before you get too discouraged and say, well, obviously no one buying then, and this must just really be a down market, that's not really what we're seeing here, Slim. What we're seeing is that this time last year there were 33 properties that sold, and this year there are 55. Okay, now that sounds like a big jump, because it is a big jump, and even prior to COVID, we see that the normally we'd see anywhere from about 38 to about 48, somewhere in there. So us being at 55 is actually above the number of properties that we would see selling around this time of year, even when the inventory was about 4 times the amount that it is now. And this is really indicative of a high demand for the Eagle River market. I can speak anecdotally for people who are, as someone who's been helping buyers try to purchase recently in Eagle River, and we have had multiple offer situations for properties that are not even on the market yet. Okay, that kind of gives you an idea for how competitive that it can be to try to buy in Eagle River right now. Which brings us to the next topic, which is going to be the average sold price. So the average sold price went from about $500,000 this time last year to about $512,000 this year, which means we've seen about a 2.5% increase for the average sold price. So this is, I think it's actually gone up by more than this. I think really what's happening is a lot of people in kind of these higher priced homes holding on to what they have because they're looking out and seeing how much they'd be spending for the same thing right now. And they're like, maybe I'll hold on to this $600,000-$700,000 house and don't let this go until I absolutely have to. I think we are in fact seeing, because it's a smaller market, that it's gone up on average by about 2.5%, and I think it's probably gone up by more than that once it's all said and done, because I think the stuff in the higher price range is being withheld because those folks are just not really wanting to go anywhere right now. So yes, statistically wise, we're looking about 2.5% increase, and I'm saying on the ground it feels like it's a lot more than that. I can't really make it more scientific than that, but I can just say, hey, I'm getting curb stomped out here, guys, and it feels like by more than 2.5%. Switching gears a little bit, let's take a look at what's going on in the condo market. Now, for the condo market, we see that the inventory went from 5 this time last year to 8 this year. Great news, going in the right direction. Let me pop your bubble once again. Prior to COVID, we'd see there was about 14 to about 33 condos available on the market. So we're getting back to where we were prior to COVID. It's just really hard for us to kind of close that gap because there's not a whole lot of space to build here in Eagle River for condos, and not a whole lot of people are wanting to let their condos go at the moment. Now, lest you think that the inventory has really dampened down the number of condos that can actually sell, and therefore it's really slowed the market down there, let me show you this graph. So we see that this time last year there were 4 condos that actually sold. This year it is 7, and 7 is kind of within range of what we saw prior to COVID, even though we'd see like 50 to about 70% more inventory available prior to COVID than what we have now. So again, just really shows a lot of demand for condos in Eagle River, and people do want to live here, and if they have to live in a condo, that is what they're going to be willing to do. Now we see the average sold price for condos, not surprisingly, went from about $319,000 this time last year to about $349,000 this year, which means, what is that, like a 9.5–10% increase for the average sold price. So that's about exactly what I would expect. And I think a big part of this has to do with the fact that we have a lot of new construction condos coming onto the market, and really nobody's buying a new construction anything these days that's on the lower end. Okay, they're mostly going to be on the higher end stuff, like around maybe 400, 450, something like that average sold price for a condo. And when you have kind of a smaller market, it's not that hard to see this big run on the prices like that. So yes, it's gone up significantly. That might have been the biggest increase we've seen in all the asset classes in South Central Alaska. But let's keep looking here. Maybe I'm wrong. All right, gang, let's go and take a quick break here real quick. For those who've been watching for a little bit, you do know that I host a podcast called The Alaskan Journey, where I talk with people who've recently moved up here to Alaska. And I really enjoy doing this, and it's actually one of the most listened to podcasts in the world. I think it's in the top 20%. And that is awesome, and thank you for listening. And I am always looking for new guests to have on the show. So if you happen to be in the state and you'd like to be a part of the podcast, reach out to me. My link to my website's down below. I'd love to have you on. And also just wanted to say I do host a meetup for people who are currently living up here, and it's really designed to help people meet friends and get out and enjoy the state, and really just enjoy the state, because a lot of people kind of see the postcard and they assume that they can just come here and everything's going to fall into place. Well, it can, and I'm trying to make sure that I give you an avenue where you can meet people and really plug in and just enjoy the state and the community for you by the time you get here. So make sure you take advantage of that. This summer, we've got a whole list of places that we're going to be going to, and kind of all those dates and places and all that is going to be in the Facebook group for the meetup, and the link to the Facebook group is going to be in the description section down below. Okay, let's go and move on and talk about what's going on in the multifamily sector of this real estate market. The multifamily market in Eagle River is such a weird animal to deal with because there's just so little inventory, but we'll jump into it and try it anyway. This time last year, there were 2 condos available on the market, and this year there are 2 properties available on the market. So not a whole lot of swing there either way. Prior to COVID, we'd see anywhere from about 7 to 8 multifamily properties on the market. That's not great if you're looking for multifamily, not gonna lie. Next, we see that this time last year, for the month of May, we see that 6 multifamily properties closed. I'm not sure what happened there. I guess everyone just decided they wanted to buy at the same time. And this year there are 0. So not a whole lot to report there. I might just skip average sold price for multifamily properties in Eagle River really for the rest of the year, because this is such a lesson in futility and nonsense, but let's take a look at it anyway. So this time last year, year to date, average sold price was about $1 million. This year, it's sitting at about $450,000. Now, before we get too excited and start saying the bomb's falling out of the market, the sky's falling, and all that good stuff, what I'm thinking is that multifamily includes everything from the duplex all the way up to like the 50 or 100 unit commercial real estate out there. And I think really what you're seeing is one of those bigger properties sold this time last year, and that's what's throwing off all the numbers. Now, I do still see an increase for the average sold price, because back in 2023, year to date, average sold price was right about $430,000, and now we're right at about $450,000. So we are seeing that kind of increase for the average sold price. We're not jumping up to $1 million for the average sold price for just every property out there, okay? So if you're a landlord, let's just calm down a little bit. All right, let's talk summary now. For those of you who are buying, this means that this is a very competitive market, and if you're going to be wanting to get into this market, you got to be ready to take some hits, and you got to be willing to make offers on multiple properties, and you can't afford the luxury of getting too emotionally invested in any one property, because we're going to have to just turn and burn a lot in this market if we're going to want to make something stick. That being said, though, we are getting to this weird time of year where there is a 2-week window where all the buyers that were trying during the springtime have given up. They've stopped trying. Sellers aren't aware of that, though, and they keep going onto the market because they think they're going to get their best price during June or maybe a bit of July. And there's a 2-week window where everyone's quit. And if you've stayed on your feet all that time, then suddenly you're not having to compete with anyone and things start getting a lot easier. So just know there's a magical dead zone somewhere here in the summertime if you really stay at it. If you are a seller, I say the big thing for you is just know it is definitely still a seller's market. It's not a Looney Tunes seller's market, though. So you're going to have to actually, we're going to have to make sure that it shows in its best light. We're going to have to do the marketing. We're going to have to make sure that your property gets its best day in court. We can't be sloppy about it and just think, oh, I'll throw it up on the MLS and, wish and a prayer, and we're going to get 10 offers. That might be your experience. I wouldn't expect it, though. So let's just make sure that we're approaching it with a certain level of intentionality and focus that your neighbors might not have had to do back in 2021. If you're an investor, the big thing is just make sure that your numbers balance out, and also really be keeping a close eye on the insurance game, because insurance is going up across the board, and there are some properties that have not been renewed just because there's a lot of people who do multifamily that haven't been doing a good job at actually managing it. The property gets destroyed. The insurance company has to step in and pay for it, and the rest of us, we're not even close to it, are catching the flack now as well because they're having to adjust everyone's rates up. So just make sure that you're paying attention to that. Hope this has been useful for you. Reach out to me if you have questions. See you next time.